there's a lot going on here. First and foremost, you have the cognitive dissonance of the elbows up Canadian metropolitan Canadian liberals, right? Like every time you and I talk, there's a bot army, a Chinese bot army that arrives.
Yeah.
But then there's, I don't know if it's a bot army or if it's actual people who truly believe that you've just made this all up and that you're, for whatever reason, trying to destroy Canada on a global scale, even though you are Canadian and you've risked your life, career, reputation multiple times. There's this cognitive dissonance that exists amongst that group of people who I refer to as being inside the metropolitan bubble, who just refuse to believe that these things are happening. And
to jump on that, like I always try to be kind in my language, but the standard or academic way to refer to people that only would get their news source from CBC radio or would only trust a David Cochrane or a Rosie Barton as the trusted source of news. Those people, I think many of them just honestly would believe that President Trump is making it up, that Canada is a major problem for fentanyl. And President Trump is doing it because he wants to take control of Canada. I'm saying that he may want, at the end of the day, he may want to take control of Canada. But the facts that Canada has for years been warned by US officials, also from the Democratic Party, that it is a major vulnerability to, one, China. It lacks urgency in responding to cartels, Chinese triads, hostile state networks, and specifically with regards to drugs, this is factual. So, I mean, Canada is a weakness. And then when you get CTV News coming out with the story, look, I'm not the only one. Kim Boland out in Vancouver has done some great reporting on how Canada is, especially Vancouver, is shipping drugs abroad. Now CTV is saying it. I'm putting on top, let's call it the more academic level or intelligence assessment understanding of who the kingpins in that are, China and Mexico. And so it's like, if you only listen to CBC radio, and to get back to the personal, and you're hearing from people that like the person you're talking to, Sam Cooper, wants to destroy Canada and it's all fake. Like, I mean, if you only get your news from a source that only gets its news from the Prime Minister's office, I don't blame you for believing that, but I blame you for not, digging a little deeper into your information sources.
And even the stuff that I see coming through, say like Globe and Mail or CTV or whatever, it's like they're going halfway. It's like they're afraid to acknowledge the full story. Like they're like, this young man who died after drinking liquid methamphetamine in New Zealand caught wind in legacy media here. I've seen the reporting, but it's like methamphetamine from Canada in a, phony beer can. This is a one-off case. Kid died. Sorry about that.
Absolutely. We saw the same thing. Like, I've been in this business for 20 years. So I know when I read something, I know how editors put stories together. I know the process, right? So it starts with, we need to do more than just write a story about methamphetamine. We need to find a victim to get people to care. So let's find the family of tragic that these kids thought they were drinking a cool Canadian beer. He drinks something that tastes a bit salty and suddenly he's dead, right? Okay, this is a good way to tell a TV story. So I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're picking up on what I'm reporting. And then you've got a paragraph that says, this is methamphetamine. President Donald Trump has falsely said that Canada is sending fentanyl. And that's when I read it and go, okay, that comes from a corporatized editor that doesn't know that President Trump has spoken falsely. And furthermore, doesn't understand the nature of all of this methamphetamine going from Vancouver to New Zealand is the very same network sending fentanyl around the world. And I say there's a gap in the evidence of it going to the US, but I don't think the US government is wrong. And my sources in Canada and the United States say the same thing. So good job, CTV, but bad job, editors, saying President Trump is falsely accusing Canada, because you're right. They're only going halfway, and it's low level reporting because they don't understand the, let's call it academic or intelligence piece up on top that I'm conveying. So I don't want to sound like arrogant, but when I read certain lines in a story, you can do the same thing. You're very experienced now, right?
This is why I don't read legacy media, because at that moment, at that paragraph, I recognize that what they're doing is narrative spin.
And it's true. Yeah, it's hedging bets, because if I really had to get psychological and philosophical, they realize that an elbows up boomer is reading that story and they're just seething. They're going, this is line by line, Canada, Vancouver. I don't want to believe in my mind that maybe President Trump is right. So then you got the editor inserts that line saying, well, President Trump falsely accused Canada. Am I getting a little bit too deep and analytical there? I don't think so, because I've been in the business for over 20 years.
You're not. You're being kind. You're being kind. And
diplomatic.
You're being diplomatic, Sam. What they're doing is they're playing to their audience, which is what legacy media does now. And the only people paying attention to legacy print and television media are liberal boomers who want to believe that the world is the perfect world that they lived in 1985. They don't want to believe that it's gone, that it's over, that it's dead. And you, Sam Cooper, just so happen to be the wet blanket telling everybody, hey guys, there's really bad stuff happening here. We should probably address this. And they don't want to believe it. And those are the people who, every time you and I talk, fill up the comment section saying Sam Cooper, is discredited. Sam Cooper's this, Sam Cooper's that, because they have to, because of their own denialism. They don't want to believe that these things are happening. And when you read that piece in CTV, that paragraph is meant to placate that audience, because they can't lose that audience. Well, they can't.
There's no reason for it to be there except for that, right?
Yes, it's just reinforcing confirmation bias, right? It's the narrative spin to continue this narrative that Donald Trump and the Americans are evil and he's Hitler, and they want to turn Canada into Austria in 1943. Or I should say 1934. They want to invade Canada, take us over. They want us to be Americans. That's the narrative these people want to believe. And that's the narrative the legacy media is committed to perpetuating, not just because it's the one that supports the current government, but it's the one that keeps their audience happy. And that's why the Bureau is important.
I'll agree with every word that you said there, including the last one.
Sorry, I don't mean to hijack this conversation.
No. We hit on the same thing, because as soon as, look, it's not just me. If you're a columnist that's been worked like an Andrew Coyne or, Terry Glavin, when you read other people's stories, you've done it so often. You've been in those editorial meetings. You've talked to the lawyers. So you know what's going on. I'm not perfect, but I'm in a position now to tell the consumers of information, this is how to be a more critical reader, because I've been on the inside of those conversations. And I'm not saying believe everything I say, but that's how I read that CTV editing. And so I not so nicely posted to Twitter X. I said, well, this is relevant and good reporting in a way, but it's not extremely knowledgeable editing and reporting in another way. It's lacking that the academic understanding of what's going on around the world, which is what I'm trying to do at the Bureau.
Well, it's also self-defeating, because here you've ran this story on this young man who dies as a result of drinking liquid methamphetamine shipped to New Zealand from Canada, which obviously lends to a larger story. And in the middle of the story, you have completely turned it into a moot point, because you now have you've written a disclaimer essentially saying Donald Trump claims that all these drugs are being distributed from Canada around the world, which is categorically false. And it's
categorically false. Yeah. At this, right, if you were really doing some sophisticated reporting, you would say, I don't know, you would caveat that while there is a lack of evidence behind what President Trump has said, and it may be beyond us in CTV Toronto to understand why there's a lack of evidence there, but sophisticated reporting in Canada, such as the Bureau, has reported that methamphetamine networks are the same as fentanyl networks, are the same as marijuana networks and ecstasy networks. They have been active in British Columbia for well over 20 years now, and they're ramping up. And this points to the super labs. So let's give your readers, now I'll be your unpaid consultant, CTV. Let's give them a little bit more, right? This is a story about methamphetamine, but it's not just that. It's a story about a network using British Columbia and Canada's brand, right? And it's a network that's supplied from China. And it doesn't matter if they put meth in one package, they flip it out for fentanyl in another, they flip it out for the precursors for fentanyl, right? To ship off to the South Pacific on another case. It doesn't matter. It's the same network using the same channels and using Canada for poly drugs. And let's go even a little further. It's the money laundering structures, including your whole city, Toronto, that are making this happen if we really want to be sophisticated.
And look, you don't even have to get that sophisticated, because I'm not a journalist, but I am a major fan of journalists such as Sam Cooper, Matt Taibbi, Seymour Hersh. I've read countless books written by real journalists. And here's what you try to do as a journalist is you try to inject nuance into your reporting. And the way that you do that is you pull quotes from other places, right? So they could have simply just pulled a quote saying, Canadian intelligence director states that Donald Trump has made numerous references to Canadian drug distribution. You can do that. Like, you don't have to add in an editorial note in the middle of a story, creating narrative spin. And when you do that, you completely discredit everything you've just said. And not only that, when you're reading the story, you're like, okay, so one kid died in New Zealand after drinking liquid meth. Why does that matter to me? Why is this important? Why does this story even exist?
Yeah, absolutely. That 100% confident editorial assertion that, Donald Trump said this falsely. No, you don't know that he said that falsely.
Well, that's the thing too is, sorry, Sam, we're going down this rabbit hole, and I'll pull us out in a second, but that's the part that drives me crazy. And the reason why I blow smoke every time you and I talk, because what people don't understand is that journalism has been editorialized. And what we are giving you right now is a pure example of that you can't believe the things that you're reading anymore because everything has a narrative spin, right? 40 years ago, I'm an essayist, I'm an editorial guy, I give my opinion. There were maybe 2 or 3 of us at any given publication. Most of us were roaming. There were, you know what I mean? Bouncing between publications. We were just basically assholes for hire. Sam, you were a member of a team of 30, 40, 50 journalists who wrote for a publication, would maybe do guest spots at other places. But the central focus was on people like you. Guys like me were, the stray dogs roaming the streets trying to find someone who would commission us to write something for $50. You guys were the guys who were on the staff. And the reason why you were is because you were held to a higher standard. Now, the problem that we face in this current era is that everything is editorial. There is no reporting anymore. It's all editorial. Everything is opinion. And whether you're reading the Toronto Star or you're reading the National Post, you're getting some form of narrative spin. And going back to my original point, this is why the Bureau is important, because guys like you are so few and far between. People who will tell the story as it is. And here's the thing. I know that you know way more than what you're putting out there. It's just that you only put out what you can prove.
Yeah. Can prove or can survive legally, because some things might not be able to be, it might be premature to report certain things. Yeah,
right.
That's true.